Hello class, my name is Jeffrey Morgan. Today I'll be doing a review on the documentary entitled Kids for Cash. In this documentary, they follow the stories of kids that were put through the juvenile system in Pennsylvania. At the time of their offenses, Judge Mark Civarella handled all the juvenile cases, and Judge Civarella followed the zero tolerance theory because when he was given the position, it was 4 years after the Columbine shooting, and that was the big trend in handling juvenile offenders. As a result, juveniles who committed minor offenses were being handled just as swiftly and strictly as someone who committed murder. Um, so, because Civarella was known for putting the kids in juvenile detentions and his cases were ran, parents said, a minute and a half. They were in and out. Because this continued to happen, the FBI looked up case files. They took over and they found that 45% of the cases were without a counselor. The defendants, the juvenile offender, didn't have any counsel on his team for when he had to face Judge Civarello, and this pretty much gave all the power into the judge's hand and none into the first offenders and, like I said, minor offenders that were coming into the system. Turns out that Judge Civarello was sending these kids to detention center for his own personal financial gain. He had a group of friends that were investors, and he put the idea down to invest in a detention center. And because he did this, he was entitled to X amount of money, in which the more kids he put away, the more money he was making. The documentary really challenged the theory of zero tolerance and made it seem like zero tolerance is just not the way to deter juvenile offenders. Judge Civarello was an extreme case of what can happen when a zero tolerance judge is given such power. As we see here, the stories that were told by some of the previous offenders were that of which he would come in and he would say, "What school did you go to?" Because Judge Civarello believed that his first warning and only warning came when he arrived to this school, that school, and said, "Hey, if you get caught doing any type of crime, I will be punishing you. You will be getting punished as a major offender." A minor offender would come in. There were stories of a kid who received a present from his parent. The parent didn't know that it had been stolen, so they bought stolen material and he was caught with it. And he was sentenced 90 days in a military-style detention center. And the facilities that he spoke of were, and with all of the people who witnessed, the detention center firsthand, they all felt a certain type of disgustingness as soon as they walked in. They already had a feeling of being a criminal. I mean, there was one kid spoke of a roach check before he went to bed. Another said that when he got there, he didn't have a pillow to sleep on for a week. Kids were pretty much quarantined, feeling that there's no one, nothing that can help you. The kids even said that they felt like the criminals they saw on TV, and their crimes weren't even half as serious as the ones that they had read or seen or heard about. And this started a kind of a slippery slope, and the slippery slope comes kids that are these minor offenders surround themselves with actual criminals and themselves turn into criminals. And one kid spoke of being in there for 3 months and being around criminal behavior and people of criminal nature. He actually tried weed for the first time. And even after the whole experience inside the detention center, they were getting out back to school, and all of a sudden they're the outsiders. And luckily, these kids that were in the documentary actually gave school a shot because um, 66% of juvenile offenders don't go back to school. Um, whether it's problems with how they're dealing with how society's looking at them, or I mean, the probation officer in many of these cases are in the school. So when a student that was a juvenile offender that's on probation does another minor offense, one kid said that he jumped over a lunchroom table. He was right back in the probation officer back locked up, and he was getting locked up and locked up. It just became something that he was now and forever will be a bad kid in the school system. People that toughed it out and weren't continually getting arrested over and over again. I know one girl said she ended up with PTSD and anxiety just from dealing with what was inside of the detention center, and then the effects that came afterwards, in which society, teachers, staff, they all pretty much gave up on it. So as the number of minor offenders keeps going up, this trend, this cycle of kids potentially ruining their lives because of one minor offense at a young age, can we trust the system? Can we truly say that they are doing their job in protecting juvenile offenders and getting through the system so that at the very end they're going to be productive members of society? And the best quote I heard in the documentary was that Judge Civarella was he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. I mean, when you give a person the role of a judge, they are supposed to be trusted. They pretty much seal your fate. Judge Civarella was quick to blame parenting and saying that he needed to step up and use his power because parents can't do that. They can't teach their kids right and wrong, so he's going to by giving them a dose of hard punishment. The thing with Judge Civarella is that he was receiving millions of dollars off the kids he was putting in these detention centers. I mean, he was using his power to push this non-tolerance theology so that he could financially improve himself. And then even after all that, all the lives that he affected, he asked for a plea bargain for 86 months, saying that he was looking for the best interest in all kids every time he was giving them these hard punishments. This man said that he was not in the wrong for sending these kids there. Was he morally wrong for accepting the money? He would tell you, yes, absolutely. After he was denied the plea bargain for 36 months, it took him to trial, and he was found guilty for 12 of the 39 counts of racketeering. Sentence was about 28 years in federal prison. The real question is, where do we go from here? The documentary did an awesome job at the end. They put different stats about the juvenile system, juvenile offenders. 2 million kids every day are arrested. 93% of them are arrested for nonviolent crimes. We, as in the United States, spend $16,500 per kid on education, and at the same time, we also spend $88,000 on incarcerating these kids that are getting this even cheaper education. But at the same time, 2,480 of the cases in which Judge Civarello was the judge, those cases were either reversed or expunged. So while the system appeared to be failing these kids, at the same time they ended up helping and they needed the system. The documentary overall did an excellent job in illustrating the power that the system has over not only the juvenile delinquents, but their families, their futures, pretty much everything. Once that juvenile is put into the courtroom, it's pretty much in the judges and the system's hands. And sadly, it's sad to say that the same juvenile offenders are being seen over and over again because of the first time that they get through it and the unfairness that comes with being a part of the juvenile system. Um, the documentary followed these kids and they shared their stories. One case followed a family who had to deal with the unfairness of the juvenile system in which he was put in. His first offense was a minor offense, and he was put into the juvenile system in which he stayed. He became what the system created. He stayed in the juvenile system and even worked his way up the ladder and made it to the state penitentiary, given the following arrest history. He was in the state penitentiary for a while. He gets out. He gets a job. He's doing well. 5 months later, he puts a bullet. So the documentary makes the viewer question if no tolerance is the right theory to go about with handling juvenile offenders. And the documentary, I think, proves that zero tolerance is not the necessary method that we need to be using for the juveniles. One guy mentions that, back in the day, a spitball was handled through the school system. The bad kid, that was doing delinquent behavior was handled through the school system. Nowadays, a spitball could end you in court and could potentially, ruin a kid's life because of such a simple and minor offense. And the thing is, the schools are loving it. The schools have no negative thoughts of getting rid of the bad kids in the school. If they're out, if they're not in the school, their school is a lot more peaceful. The documentary altogether did a great job in pointing out the flaws that come with the zero tolerance theory policy that some judges are following. The story was of an extreme example of what can happen when a person pushes their power and is fueled with this zero tolerance theory, and it can show how thousands of lives can be affected by just one man. And I really don't think that was the purpose. I think the purpose was just pointing out the flaws that come with zero tolerance and bringing light to the fact that we need to handle juveniles differently than adult offenders. If not, they will soon become adult offenders and they'll be seen in and out of our correctional facilities. And instead, why don't we offer more money towards education and keeping the problem inside the school? Doing so might stop the incline of money being spent for juvenile facilities that are just housing the bad kids in the school. It's no longer needed. If you get a chance, please check out this documentary. Like I said, it's Kids for Cash. It was a great story, and it really opened my eyes up to the flaws of the policies and the theories that are fueling our juvenile system. Thank you very much for staying tuned. Have a nice night.